no matter what your business objective is, fun needs to be like
it's got to be in front.
There's
no point in doing it if it's not fun.
Right.
Right. Now, fun and the Army, are supposed to go together, I guess. We think games does the exact opposite. That we look at what games work, and particularly for our age groups, we care about young people. The games that work are the first-person games, in particular. And the first-person world is the world of a soldier in our business. And it's not a real-time strategy game, which is what we were doing, right? The world of the rank shots, looking down on, the icons moving around. This is the people in the icons. What are they doing? And when you get into that, it gets really tough because if you're doing icons of battalions, brigades, platoons, they can't really do many things, like a human can do anything.
Right.
A platoon or a battalion, brigade, they really can't do many things. A division is not going to swim a river. It's not going to swim an ocean. It's not going to fly.
Right.
It's not going to do any of these crazy things. A human could get on top of this building and fly for a few minutes.
Right.
A few seconds. The job I have is it's the only job like it that I know of in the Department of Defense. It was created by General Thurman way back in 1982 when the Army was failing in the volunteer Army. It was pretty close to an ultimate disaster. And we are a direct support entity of West Point to Department of the Army, Department of Defense. And my charter is really one line: help senior leaders create the Army of the future.
So is your background, are you an economist? Is that your background too, or is it just...
We call it economist. It's really public policy.
Okay.
And public policy is statistics, economics, and a little behavioral science. And so it's a person that's an applied economist, really. So I don't go off and create new theory. I look at the body of theory that exists and apply it to governmental problems.
Okay.
So I'm an associate professor of economics at West Point, so that makes me an economist. But I'm not a Nobel laureate in macro, micro, or anything like that. People would talk about how cheap it was to put content into homes using new media. And at that time, new media was really like DVD going into your house through a mailbox. And I was struck by how cheap that was. And it popped in my mind that, geez, if there's some way to package the Army in a virtual experience that you could put on a DVD or some new media and get into a household, we could lick a big economic problem, which is a boring term called intermediation.
Okay.
The country's going through a problem with intermediation right now, called banks. They intermediate between lenders and borrowers, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the media intermediates between people with a message and people looking for information. Mm-hmm. And the media that intermediates for the Army is, of course, Hollywood, news, veterans, all sorts of folks, right? And they're all in pop culture. Mm-hmm. Well, if you can actually bundle yourself so that you're an experience, there is no intermediation.
Right.
And the
you wanted a direct channel with the end user.
With the target audience. And they can actually test drive your product, which nobody can test drive the Army, right? I mean, who's going to buy a car without a test drive or make a big decision without like some kind of trial period, right? Well, there's no test drive in the Army. In the business of making games for whatever, you got to think about what do you want to own and why do you want to own it. We wanted to own everything because we thought that if this worked, there would be a lot of spin-offs that we couldn't anticipate, but we would want to capture. If you don't own everything, then you've got a problem capturing those things, and mostly what we capture is reuse. Once you make an avatar, a truck, a piece of dirt, a tree, it's yours forever, and you get to reuse it buku times, right? Which is why Activision, Electronic Arts, these companies are profitable,
sure.
Unless they let their costs go out of control, because they get a lot of reuse. It's software, and software is lots of reuse, right? You can make it once and sell it many. That's what we want to do, except we want to make it once and use it many. So this getting going part set the stage for everything we ever did after that. We had control, we had rights, we had access to talent, and then the key thing to really locking in talent was the technologies. Probably the most important thing we did after figuring out go to Naval Postgraduate School, have control, own everything, was, okay, what are we going to build this on now? There was a choice. We could build everything. We'd already discarded the idea of build nothing, right? That would be go to industry and have them build it. And we had sort of settled on a middle ground, which was build the Army. Army doesn't know anything about building games, really. So don't get into the game business. get into the Army business. And by that we meant license all the key things. Okay, so that's license the engine, license the tools, you know, the Maya, Umbra, you know, Bink, all the tools we're using today, we license. Why would the Army want to go off and build that stuff, right? Well, there's people in the military building that stuff. Ogre, right, and all this stuff. And there's no money in it, so why would it be good? Americans make money doing great stuff, right? Hollywood, games. So the game industry is huge. Now, you know, we got that discussion earlier on about military started this games business. It still thinks it's running it in some parts. We're nothing. This industry is huge. The creative people are out there making things, making money. What we need to do is figure out how to grab that tiger by the tail and go for the ride. Well, the way you do that is figure out, you know, how to own it, and then figure out how to get access to the best technologies.
How did you find the game design talent for the game?
We didn't. Once we picked the technologies, I think they found us. So there was no firm. There is no firm. There's just people. So the traditional approach would have been, you know, to your question, the firm, right? That would be where you give us some commercial entity, and once you give it the commercial entity, you get their agenda. And you don't know what it is until too late, right? But it's probably make a commercial game, given the money in this business. And knowing that, we still stayed well clear of that. What we use is individuals. So we hire firms who hire individuals, and the individuals are on basically an hourly rate with the military. And so the designers, the engineers, all these guys are employed by companies like SAIC and DCS, and they're working on specific things for us, and we own it when they're done. So DCS or SAIC don't get involved in designing it or managing it or any of that. They manage the employees, but the product is managed by the Army. So it's a hybrid sort of situation, and the agenda is ours.